Going back to school, we are getting the conversation, well, continuing the conversation, because this time around, some kid somewhere is actually excited to go back out. That's why Javed Abdool, the team lead for the Regional Case Management Unit at the Children's Authority, is joining us here on The Now once more. Good morning and welcome back, Jared.
Hey, good morning to everyone.
Now, in terms of that extra week, jumping right into it, it's a good thing for prep, but a bad thing for the kids who are excited to go back. What exactly should both parents and perhaps students be doing to prepare to go back into school?
Well, first to start the conversation, I know school is a safe haven for many children across the country. Unfortunately, that is the place where they get heard, that's where they get meals, and that's where their needs are met primarily. So for those children, I know it will be a week extra in some uncertain circumstances. However, for those that are interested in going back out, before we even reach the starting back school, I know this is about the time where vacation camps and those various Bible camps, etc., are starting to wrap up.
Right.
So I just want to remind the public, remind caregivers, parents, anybody who is in charge of children, please put proper arrangements in place to supervise the children at home. I know we usually remind the public, so we just want to continue to remind the public that children should not be left to care for other children in the home. This is a very dangerous practice, and usually most persons would say, well, nothing ever happens or nothing happened. But what if on one occasion something did happen? The consequences would be very severe.
A good reminder, because I am an adult and I still want to make sure that I have enough support when I have my nieces. But then let's talk specifically to that primary school transitioning into secondary school. Whole new life, whole new world. Any tips there?
Yes, it's very important to understand that for some children, adjustment isn't always natural. For some children, change is very unnatural and difficult for some children to grasp. So that's why it's important for parents and caregivers, those in charge of children that are transitioning from one school to another, or even from primary to secondary, that you do some sort of background beforehand. When you go to the school to register, or whatever you would do in preparation of transitioning, it's important to at least locate where the class will be so that the child could have a sense of where the child will be sitting, what the area looks like, what activities are there, extracurricular activities at the school, what activities, who are the teachers, so that at the first day of school, especially for a child where adjustment is difficult, it's not going to be thrown on them fully, and they will be prepared on what to expect.
What is a realistic time frame for parents and children to expect that adjustment to take place?
That's a very difficult question to answer because children are different. They are living, breathing. There are different circumstances that affect different children. So what a child might be able to overcome in a short period might take others maybe up to a year. So generally the rule of thumb in therapy and in research is that it would take sometimes some children up to a year to adjust. So it should not be that you rush to get some type of immediate intervention in less than a year period. However, the adjustment must be monitored. There must be strides being made. And the parent just needs to be as supportive as possible. They need to do some sort of activity with the child, to engage the child, to monitor the child, to make sure that there's some sort of adjustment still taking place.
Javed, what would that look like in terms of activities, for example, to gauge how well they're adjusted? What would that look like?
As basic and simple as it isn't rocket science. It's just to have a heart-to-heart conversation with your child.
Nice.
Get to know your child. Ask your child on an afternoon with a smile, how was your day? What happened? And that way you could gauge how the child is feeling, what type of mood the child is in. If something would have happened that the child might not want to come out and tell you at first, by having this conversation might open the door to the child revealing things that normally will not be said to you.
That's fair. And let's talk about that conversation in the afternoon, for example, because sometimes you're just not going to get it. I've seen it with my nieces. They come home, school was great, end of conversation. There is nothing else there. That post-evening conversation or exchange, how do we navigate that better?
That's very important. It should be done as soon as you have access to the child, whether the child comes home or you pick the child up in the car. And I know as a rule of thumb, a nice way to start or to engage a conversation of this sort is to at first present something to the child that the child is familiar with. So maybe it might be a snack that the child looks forward to, or a drink, a chubby or a water, or whatever it is. And then you can start because the child is familiar, they are already comfortable, and because usually for some, the school days are very difficult day. Not in any type of abuse or anything negative that may have happened, but just for a child that is still developing. Going to school and studying for about 6 to 8 hours is very taxing on the brain, on the body, physiologically. So when you would expect it's normal for some children when they come after school to be a little bit tired, withdrawn, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything negative would have happened. However, it's important to monitor this to see if there's any sorts of history or anything like that.
Okay, which is a good thing because I always thought it was a sign of or some sort of red flag to some extent. I'm glad that you're reassuring me it's relatively normal.
Yes, it is.
And that would go across for primary school into secondary school or even teenagers as well. But I think the teenagers, we have a little bit of tweaking to do.
Yes,
what if we look to parents, to teachers even, and other caretakers when we're dealing with the teenagers transitioning?
Well, at the teenage level, they could be a little bit more defiant, all right? So whereas for a child, let's say 10 and under, you might be able to set boundaries, make rules, and be hard and fast. Where teenagers are concerned, there needs to be a little bit of more negotiation. You need to know your child, you need to know the specifics of the child and what the child is involved in to know where leeway can be given, especially, for example, a teenager, 14, 15, 16-year-old. You don't expect that they go to bed 7 or 8 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, you could be a little bit flexible. You could maybe go until 9, 10. You have to know your child and ensure that your child is getting at least 8 to 10 hours rest a night so that they're able to perform at their peak and best the next day.
Now, Javed, we have, as we said, that extra week to get ready. Should we start that earlier, bedtime all now, one thing to get them back into routine?
Definitely. I should think so, and we're the authority think so, because you don't want to spring something on a child. You don't want to say, okay, next week is school, so let's start this week. You should start easing back into routine and procedure from all now. It doesn't mean that you throw everything at them right now, but start engaging one by one, introducing one by one new routine, so that when school starts, they're prepared, they know what to expect, they know how to behave, and all goes well.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Now, as much as you're giving us this information or reiterating things we already know, if we wanted to get support from the Children's Authority, in terms of those same tips or any other information, remind us of how we can connect.
Definitely, you can walk into any one of our centers that's located in Woodbrook, on the Chaguanas Main Road, or in St. Madeleine South. And we also have our office in Tobago, so you can walk into any one of these physical offices and speak to someone that will be able to provide assistance. You can even call. You can call a toll-free number, 996. You don't need any money on your phone to call. You can email registry@ttchildren.org, and if you're old time, you could write a letter, a pen.
Not old time, but in that case, we are glad to have the support as the children transition back into school, but we will continue these conversations as the Children's Authority continues to lend its support right here on The Now. Guys, when we come back, we have even more ways that we're going to support you, so come back after these messages.
Mommy, mommy, school is closing today.